Hello and welcome back to Creed Got Robbed. I almost forgot the name of the podcast, but I didn't. We out here. It's Mike, joined by my longtime friend, Duve. Hello, Duve. How are you?
Hello, Mike. I'm doing well.
And by Duve, I mean Dave. We are here to remind the folks that, in fact, Creed got robbed. And before we discuss the actual film that we are here to talk about today, which we will get to, we need to do a bit of housekeeping because a trailer for Creed 2 officially released today, which means that we now officially have to rename the podcast to, drumroll please, Creed 2 Better Not Get Robbed.
Yay!
Yeah, clap that up. Flows right off the tongue. It's blowing up the charts on iTunes. It works so much better, I think. So I think it does. I agree. So that is what it is being changed to. We will. I assume the movie will be perfect, and therefore, it is not possible for this movie to be bad because a bad movie cannot be robbed. So therefore, the movie will be good, and that's just the discussion.
Yeah, I'm sensing, Best Picture nomination, Best Actor, Best Actress. Yeah, I'm sensing everything.
Exactly. So it's it'll be 2019 at that point. Black people are allowed to win Oscars, or so I've been told. Finally, lots of progress. Nothing else bad is happening, so it's fine. Anyways, so
I didn't know how to respond to that.
We can edit this part out. I won't edit it out. I keep everything. I'll just sprinkle in an air horn or two, maybe three. We'll figure it out.
Hopefully 3.
Yeah, let's go for 3. I'll figure it out. Anyways, we are here to talk about a very different movie from Creed. We are here to talk about the film Hereditary.
Yes.
Horror film that has recently come out and has been that was quite remarkable in a lot of ways, and I think just has a really interesting discussion to offer here. It is directed by Ari Aster, and it is his first feature-length debut, and it is. I've seen some. It is a damn good movie for someone making their first feature length, which is crazy. So I don't even.
Yeah, with how good,
obviously,
with how good his first film is, with how good this first film was, I'd be super interested to find out what his short movies are like, or his shorts are. I would be. I'm so curious to find out if they're just as good or just as well directed.
I agree, and I think obviously we're going to get into heavy spoiler territory, so be warned. Last chance. Okay. So I really don't boy, there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah.
I don't even really quite know where to start. I think
so just generally, even before we get into too heavy spoilers, just the movie is about a history of mental illness and disturbance passed down through family members. And I think that's about as much as you can do without spoiling the rest of the movie.
It runs in the family. It's hereditary. And I think that was they kind of spell it out pretty obviously at one point in the movie when they're talking about Oedipus Rex, the Greek tragedy, talking about how this soothsayer has told Oedipus that he will kill his father and sleep with his mother, and how they were one of the characters was in an English class when they were discussing this. They were talking about how whether or not it's more or less tragic if they know that everything has been fated and that they're doomed to this.
Yeah.
Or if they think they have a chance to avoid this, or if they know it, if they have no idea.
Yeah. And that whole story directly relates to the story in Hereditary. How Okay, we're getting into spoilers now. How
Last
this
chance.
essentially, yeah, last chance. Essentially, this entire story has been manipulated by a cult, and this family has had no chances to escape their fate, essentially, and that the fact that this resurrection of, I think his name's Pagan or Pagon. Payman, that's right, Payman. The resurrection of this Payman, this right hand man of Satan. How it's inevitable. I mean, the whole movie has been orchestrated by this cult, and it's just, oh man, once you realize that, the whole movie just gets so much creepier and so much more disturbing.
Like, I mean, it just even starting at the very opening scene. I think this might be me reading too much into it, but I like how it starts with the obituary of the kind of matriarch grandmother of the family. And again, I think this is reading too much into it, but obituaries have a very distinct style. Like, there is a very specific way you write an obituary. It's like,
Sure.
This person is this person who is this and this has passed away. She is survived by this person and this person and this person. She was the descendant of this person and this person. Rest in peace. And just like that super like tight structure of it, and the movie very specifically shows it like not just like text across the screen, but it shows you like it's a clipping from like a newspaper clipping. Like it keeps the paragraph format. And at the time, I don't think it means a lot, but like then you see the mother talking to or giving the googly, as Derek Zoolander would say, at the funeral, and what you later realize is that the entirety of anyone who's attending there are members of this cult.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show how deeply destined all of this is, in a in that sense, and it's like there's already such like a. It's like my point here is kind of that like the structure of the obituary is so much like the kind of structure of this family and its cult and their ultimate fate. Like there's a way that this it's outlined like Payman needs prefers a male body. He needs people to be beheaded. There has to be this kind of sacrifice. Like all of that is destined in a way, and it's really cool to see that how like the characters kind of struggle with that, and how in a lot of ways like it kind of shares a similarity with some other movies where like The Witch, for example, where a lot of the things that are kind of that you see in the movie are like as a result of it's mental illness, it's depression, it's like for a lot of the like for 70% of the movie, it's a family drama and tragedy. Like,
and that was my favorite part of the movie. That first half where it was just about the family struggling with the loss of the grandmother, and then subsequently the loss of the daughter. That first half, that first like 80 minutes or so, hands down, like one of my favorite family dramas in film, because the way that they shoot the son dealing with the tragedy of essentially killing his sister.
Yeah,
the camera is so tightly focused on his face. He's afraid to look up, and the camera literally does not cut from his face. Like there is no catharsis in like seeing what happened. It's literally just focusing on his face, that kind of shot happens just constantly in the film.
Yeah,
there's at points. Go ahead.
Yeah, and they do a great job of like making that uncomfortable because you've seen that shot before, and when it should cut. When it should cut away to show you what happens, and it doesn't. It makes you feel stuck and trapped and like helpless. It translates like it was really visceral and deeply unsettling.
Yeah.
Like not in like I'm seeing something horrific way, but it was just like a great way to kind of throw off the rhythm of
Yeah.
like how you expect visual storytelling to work in movies in a way that was super duper effective. Like how you don't see, like I mean, continuing on, especially when the kid is laying in his bed, and because he after his sister is separated from this mortal coil, and he just goes to his bed and he just lies down, and I swear it's like you're looking just right at his face for like 45 seconds.
Yeah.
And in another movie, you would see the mom come downstairs, go to the car, look at the body, but you hear all of that, so you know what it's like. You still visualize that, but you aren't like you're trapped with him, and it's incredible.
And this something that this director does is he knows that your imagination can scare you more than something that he can show you. So what he does is he constantly builds up these reactions, and he shows you the characters' reactions, and he foreshadows things, and it's making your imagination just run rampant about, oh my god, what's going to happen, like this could happen, this could happen, this could happen. And one really good shot that shows that is when he's kind of near the end, when he's sitting in his bed, the son is sitting in his bed, and in the corner you see like a figure, but you don't know you see a figure quite yet. It's so dark, but you kind of start to see like a person just sitting in the corner, like obviously impossibly sitting in the corner. And it's that idea where, you know, a lesser horror movie would have that character jump down, the camera would cut, and you would see it jumping the camera. But instead, it's this long shot of this creature just standing in the corner, and you're like, what is that? When is it going to attack?
And
when is it going to move? And it never does. And that's what's so spooky about this movie, is it plays with your expectations. And oh man, I'm getting spooked out. I gotta like look behind me to like make sure there's nothing.
I know, seriously. And
oh Jesus. Oh.
And I think, and even just having like the I guess there are still like a couple of like plot things I'm trying to like figure out too. Like just having like the presence of Payman just be that like innocuous.
Yeah, or that
like
or that blue light that shines around. Like that's essentially
it's like it's not something like immediately like inherently dark in a way. Like it's just like, what was that? Like it's something that is. It's kind of like you don't know if it's real or not. Like, what did you hear? Like,
how was when you saw this movie? How was your sound? Like, actually, the sound in the theater, was it pretty good?
Yeah, generally, surprisingly, that movie theater actually has a really bad habit. I think in some of their smaller theaters, of cutting out on sound in some of the worst possible times.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's really bad, and we've complained multiple times about it, and they haven't fixed it. But, anyways, but we actually had it was pretty good.
Okay, so like one thing that they did so well was audio editing. You would hear that click sound, and you would hear it from behind you, and
yes,
and you wouldn't know like where it came from. It was the director's way and the editor's way of making you feel uncomfortable. Because at that point you're in the middle of the story and you don't know. And there isn't
a visual directional cue for it to be. So I think I remember that now because I thought it was people in the audience doing it. Like
too.
I couldn't tell.
Me too.
And like just having it on like a completely different channel from like the rest of what was happening in the movie. It's
totally
like
different channel.
It just is really effective ways of using storytelling that sometimes movies don't. Like it's a whole different, like that's why I really liked that. I thought that was like A Quiet Place did a really good job of it because it it utilized visual storytelling and kind of auditory storytelling in ways that a lot of movies kind of forget that they're working with those senses sometimes, even though they're movies.
Yeah, like
not having, like, for example, in that movie, like they like the grocery store that they're like kind of pillaging is all picked off except for the chips, like the sun chip aisle, because you eventually learn that it's like, oh, those make a lot of noise, but they don't have to tell you that. But it is a great, like, it's a great kind of combines like the visual and auditory in a way.
And I think that can segue a little bit into what horror movies can do and what horror movies can accomplish that standard like dramas or thrillers can't accomplish. It's the fact that these horror directors or horror movies utilize sound and utilize your expectation much differently than, let's say, like a comedy would. So I think that's why I think directors are starting to realize that, and I think you're starting to see like actually really really well done horror movies. And I think like if you date back a little bit, look at like a movie like Get Out. Like Get Out seemed to be like the first like critically acclaimed horror movie, and I think moving forward, I think we're going to see a lot more critically acclaimed horror movies that are generally recognized as amazing movies, more than just like Shining and Rosemary's Baby, like and Psycho, more than just that, but like movies that are actually nominated, recognized, so.
And get like more than just like the classics of the genre, but getting sustained film, like different company, like different creative teams, but still getting like kind of, I would say more so like than I don't know if like it's a renaissance per se, but it kind of feels like they're finally. It's like they're finally getting the attention that was due, but it's also coinciding at a time that some of that people are getting that, like distribution teams like A24 and Blumhouse are getting horror, like really creative and like giving risky horror ideas like this the attention and love that they deserve. So it's like it's kind of it's like a combination of all those things. Because
and just a second, can we take a moment and recognize how many good movies A24 has put out in the past like 5 years?
Yeah, they have been on a real
like
they're really good at picking movies.
It's incredible. So I made a list of like these spectacular movies that A24 has put out. Like and it's not just horror. I mean it's comedy, it's drama. Like Swiss Army Man, Witch, Under the Skin, It Comes at Night, Florida Project, Killing of a Sacred Deer, Lobster, Ghost Story, Good Time, Moonlight.
Oh
like,
my god.
Like the list of these movies that this production company is putting out is spectacular. Like I am so excited for what this production company like puts out and what they choose to back. I'm so excited. I will see every A24 movie that comes out at this point.
Yeah, like they've really kind of, I think they've also this might be a dumb comparison, but they've kind of almost have like an Adult Swim kind of playbook to film distribution where things that are on Adult Swim are all made by different people, but you all understand why all of those shows are in that place. So they have a very to say they have a well-defined brand is kind of underselling it. I think but they very much have a good idea about what kind of projects fit with their ethos.
Yeah, with their style.
And give and you make sure that they get those projects like don't kind of languish and get out, which is really cool. That was not a pun, I promise. That was not intended.
Boo.
I guess going back to Hereditary, like I think like what kind of what you were saying about it being a family drama. I mean, that was definitely like, I think that's why some people might not be, who are expecting a more straightforward horror film, might not have been. I think we'll talk about this a bit more later, but like why they might have been surprised, because it is like after the daughter is killed in such a horrifying way, like it is gut wrenching. Like the mom just like wailing there, and then like the dinner. Like,
and just what she's saying too. She's like rocking back and forth, just saying, "Kill me!" Like just literally kill me. I have nothing to live for. Just kill me. And seeing a mom do that is just kind of spooky, because you expect this maternal figure to be protecting. First of all, what was her name? Toni Collette? Is that the actress's name?
Yes.
Okay, she is spectacular in this film as the flawed mother who technically never wanted to be a mother, but was forced into motherhood by her mother. And it's just, she does a spectacular job. And when she finds out about her daughter's death, she's rocking back and forth on the ground, and her husband doesn't know how to console her. He's just kind of standing there, and
and I think that was one of the things that really stuck, that really made this movie special for me, was how invested I got in this family.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would, like, at the dinner scene, like, when the kid was like, "Hey, Dad, this was really good," I'm like, yes,
right, yeah,
the happy family, they're gonna make it, they're gonna do it, they're gonna pull this out. And then it just like, and then you just see like the mom, like, I mean, because they kind of have like the mom and the son have always had this like catty kind of relationship.
Yeah,
you know, part of it's like that's the kind of, it kind of blurs the lines. Like, you don't know if it's because of this, like, this whole cult thing, or if it's just that's because how family and kids are. Like,
yeah, he's a teenager. He's around that age.
Like, and they did a great job of like, because some of the dialogue in that movie, I haven't heard it per se, but I've very much heard conversations in my life that sounded exactly like the way they talk to each other.
Oh, for sure.
And I'm like, no, I know what this is. Stop doing this. This is bad. Stop doing this. And there's nothing supernatural about it, and it's just like heart-wrenching, because you know, like, that when shit is gonna hit the fan, and oh god, it does. You know that there's only one way they're gonna keep it together, and they're just not doing it. And like, again, it's like the cold goes back to the kind of fate thing. Like, you see it coming a mile away, and it's still just as like tragic when it finally all falls apart. And I guess, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, we haven't really touched on the mother's what the mother does, or like what she does for a living. So the Toni Collette's character, I guess from what I gather, is an artist, and she builds lifelike miniatures of scenes.
Her job is to get called by the art gallery every
yeah,
year.
Exactly.
You know, hey, it's Tony with the art gallery. Heard that your son has been possessed by the Payman, one of the lords of hell. It's a really great move for him. Everyone's about to glow up. You know, that's what we do here. So it's really exciting. Just want to put a little bug in your ear about, you know, maybe the gallery opening, just checking. I know the payment thing's probably a lot, but just wanted to check and see if okay, I'll catch it. Bye. Click.
But and those moments where you see the extreme micro shot, or I guess it would be macro shots of those dollhouses essentially that she's building. They work on a bunch of different levels. So one, it's her trying. It seems like it's the mother's failing attempt to grasp the situation. Essentially, it's this mom's way of dealing with everything. There's one really, really weird dollhouse shot, and I wasn't sure if what I saw was actually what they showed. Was at one point, was there like a hospital room where the grandmother had her bosom out and was trying to breastfeed the baby?
Yes.
Was that a real thing?
That was...
Okay, so yeah. So on one level, it's this mother that's trying to deal with these situations, and this is the only way she knows how. On another level, it kind of represents this cultish behavior of, predetermined fate, where everything is a dollhouse. The cult is literally playing with this family like they're dolls in a dollhouse, and I think that realizing that about 3/4 of the way through. At that point, I was like, all right, this is a good movie. This is a good movie.
Yeah, I think it's something that they hint at super early in the movie too, because the very first shot is like a shot of it, because the movie starts in
it shows
at least I think
it shows
because it shows her workshop.
Right? I think it shows the tree house, and then it zooms into the house, like going backwards.
Yeah, and then it goes into her workshop, and then it starts to zoom in on one of the model rooms, and you can't tell if you're looking at the model or the room itself until the dad walks in, and you're like, and eventually that kind of comes into relief of like, there are a couple other shots in the movie too where it looks. There's just something off about it. Like it looks like it might be a miniature. And you don't know if it's real, but it's like shot the way the scenes that they do that are in the workshop look like. But it is the house, and it just kind of again plays that line of like, this is all. I mean, these people are just toying with their lives, like how the like the cult symbol is carved into the telephone pole, like where the daughter loses her head, and man, and then you have to think like, I loved the kind of there was like a lot of weird. I loved the weird constant close-up shots of knives chopping things very vigorously.
Yeah,
it's like, because I know when I went to parties when I was in high school, definitely everyone was just like chopping walnuts like like that was just something that we did at parties. It was like,
totally.
Wow, this is all right. We're about to make a cake. Let's get some nuts. Yeah, like. And you kind of forget about it, but then you remember the nut allergy. I don't know why they necessarily did that, but it was just something that was like deeply uncomfortable.
So you mean you don't know why they showed all the knives, like the knives cutting the nuts?
Yeah, because it's like the dad did it during like making dinner.
Yeah.
Like it was just it was like I think it was intended to be unsettling, but it always just like creeped me out. Even though the knife itself was never like no one chopped off their finger or anything. Like,
I would like to bring up an association for you though. All those like chopping up dinner, chopping up the nuts. Fast forward in the movie later when the son is in the attic and the mom is banging on the ceiling. It's kind of that similar thing where it's this incessant banging on something, and then finally, after all this banging, there's a sudden cut to her literally on the ceiling, banging her head against the attic door. It's very similar to all the knives chopping up the food, and that's this whole movie has this visual language that is very everything kind of echoes something, whether it's a shot, if it's an audio cue, if it's a certain way the camera moves, everything kind of relates to something that happened earlier in the movie. And that scene in the attic when the mom is banging her head on the ceiling trying to get into the attic, that is a shot that will forever be scarred into my head. I will never ever be able to like walk under an attic and not think of Toni Collette banging her head against an attic at like an inhuman speed.
Yeah, like that was wild. And like another really creepy one for that was early in the movie you see the daughter, like I can't remember if this is before or after she was cutting the head off a bird. But you see she's just like standing or like sitting down or something in the schoolyard, and you see the woman across the street like staring at her and like smiling, and it's like a distant in a way. You're like, who is this lady? What does this have to do with anything? But then later, after the the tragic plot twist that Sarah saw coming, but I did not see coming because I'm a dummy. Where the nice like Joanne, or what I think is what her name was, because that's what she looks like. Her name is, which is perfect casting. When she starts when the same thing happens, and then it's like she's telling the son to leave his body, to like you are be banished from your like physical form. And you're like, and then that clicks and he's like, that's what happened. Yeah. And just the keeping that style consistent to remind you of that. Also, yeah, I think definitely that was like one of the I loved the kind of twist with that, because it wasn't like immediately like that we saw that because she seemed like a really genuine and nice, and it's like, I talked to my son, I talked to him, like I'm like, okay. and then as soon as it goes from light outside, and then as soon as it cuts, it's like immediately dark, and you're like, oh, this is really bad. This is, oh man, it's just.
Yeah, and I think one thing again that we mentioned even earlier in this podcast was that the editing in this film is meant to make you feel uncomfortable, whether it's quick switches from night to day, whether it's really eerie fades that happen, like fades from when the son is walking to his room after he just killed his sister. You know, you expect the camera to either cut to black, cut to inside of his room, cut to his face, cut to the car, something. But instead, it lingers on the shot of the hallway and his room just a little bit too long. And before your body can even like expect a change, it starts to fade into his face. So that like the director uses these kind of interesting edits to show passages of time and just always keep you on edge, just to keep you just a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, I loved those day-night shifts, like that. I mean, because they felt so abrupt and unnatural, and like that's not the way day-night cycles work in movies.
Yeah, it's always like through like a different edit. Like it's always like either the next day or there's always a cut to something different. It's not just a static shot of a tree and all of a sudden it's nighttime. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, it feels like there was no It kind of feels like, because usually there's like a payoff of like, oh, we made it through the night, we made it, we did it, but you don't get that. Like it just is just like bang, like you're still going, like there is no relief in making it to morning. There kind of is, but ultimately there really isn't. So I guess like one kind of last thing I want to bring up specifically about the movie. I mean, there's so much to dig into. Like I might have to watch it again sometime just to see all the other details going on here. But I saw a great kind of thread about it on Twitter the other day, where it's someone talking about like the idea of like monuments in horror, and it's just kind of something that kind of is exemplified by the final scene of like the weird, crazy like statue they built of Payman in the treehouse, as you know, someone's headless body is floating there after she cut off her own head with piano wire, which is wild. That was just
uncomfortable to say the least.
Yeah. But the idea that I thought that was just like really striking, because a lot of times in horror there's a kind of like a monument, or I'm trying to think like the pictures from like The Shining, or like the weird statue from The Omen. I'm trying to think of other like good examples here.
Are you referring to like physical things that represent like the theme of the movie?
Yes, exactly. Like like the statue of Payment isn't in and of itself isn't a threat or scary, but like the horror it represents of like this demon lord being made real, and like the physical and like the familial damage across generations that it has inflicted, is to see it like so starkly represented in like a figure gives it like this weird, like kind of terrifying presence. And then how the
I think that's kind of like what good horror movies do, is they kind of make ordinary objects, or just objects that seemingly aren't, unsettling by themselves. They make them unsettling to the audience. So you think about movies like effective horror movies. You think of effective horror movies like
The Wicker Man.
Okay, well, The Wicker Man, or I was thinking like The Witch, The Witch, where like you see a goat, and that goat is unsettling. Goats are not unsettling, but because the way it's shot, because of the story, that goat is unsettling.
Yeah, so, I'm trying to look up like another a couple of examples here as I'm stalling.
Well, and you can think of even more of them. So, like, think of so the first Ring. I think that was Gorbert Verbinski. That first Ring. I mean, so wells aren't naturally scary, but the fact that there was a girl trapped in that well, makes it unsettling and frightening, and I think that's what ineffective horror movies fail to do. So like, or ineffective horror movies. So like, you think of your run of the mill Halloween cash grab, like whatever it ends up being, like the Unfriended, like, oh no, they're using technology and this woman is possessing, but you don't care about it because it's not set up properly. Or if you think of like Truth or Dare or any of the, like Ouija, you don't care about those things because they don't set up the characters, they don't set up their story, you don't care about whether or not they die, and ultimately they're going to die because it's a horror movie. Like it's those things that bad horror movies just do that just make them ineffective. So a movie like Hereditary, when it goes against those things, it just makes it stand out that much more.
Exactly. So like, I mean, it's like having the movie all be kind of summed up in like the final shot, which is like the diorama style look of the people bowing down to payment, but it's it looks like it's like a diorama with like the all black surrounding. It's like just such a perfect distillation of the ideas of that movie, and to see, I think like, I really like when movies can kind of not boil down, but like deliver their themes and ideas and motifs into one single scene, image, sequence. Like to see that just so, I think that's the mark of a good idea, is that, because I think a lot. This is gonna sound dumb, but like, a lot of the best ideas for stories and films are relatively simple.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, I totally agree. To see that, just super condensed into like a single like image and experience is just really. I think the best movies can do that at the best times. Like for one of them that I've just popped into my head, like Shawshank Redemption, like after he like literally crawls through a mile of shit and is free. Okay, like it's not quite like exact, like it's kind of like the iconic moment of a movie, and it's and I think being able to compress all of that into a single kind of a neat little dollhouse,
exactly, like into a perfectly little contained thing is a mark of a film that like knows it has a good idea, but is well done in it, that it, the devil's in the details.
So Mook, after all this talk about a good horror movie, how excited are you for Bumblebee? Are you excited for the movie, the Transformers movie called Bumblebee? How exciting does that movie look?
To be honest, the trailer looked better than some of the other Transformers movies, so I actually like.
How dare you?
Legitimately,
How dare you?
Sorry. Sometimes I must dine with the swine. Okay.
I guess
to better understand their palate.
I guess I'll let you do that. I'll avoid that movie like the plague.
I'll let you know when A24 does their Transformers movie.
Thank you. I will see that movie the second it comes out.
A24 presents Unicron, the real good guy.
Well, first of all, I mean, I don't know, we're kind of wrapping things up here, but what did you see any trailers for good movies before this movie? Do you remember?
I thought the one we saw one for Unfriended. I don't know, the dark web that was bad.
Oh god, that's so atrocious.
It's just that's exactly the opposite of Hereditary. But there was one that was that looked more like a thriller. I cannot remember the actor's name. He's in Harold and is he in Harold and Kumar?
I don't know.
Oh wait, yeah. Wait, why did I ask you that? Oh God, that's embarrassing.
I don't know. At the theater that I was at, I just saw terrible trailers, like terrible movies, constantly, and that kind of reminded me of how important advertising is to get the the average moviegoer into movies. Like they need to show
John Cho. Sorry,
No, you're good.
I finally
You're
got
good.
it.
You're good. The advertising for movies is getting so annoying and like I don't know, just like face palmy. Like every horror movie, there's going to be that one gruesome cut. There's going to be that loud bang sound. There's going to be the quiet moment. Like every advertised horror movie is exactly the same, and that's what I think A24 does so well is when they show you a trailer for a movie, you don't know what it's about, and actually one thing I think that they kind of dropped the ball on was the advertising for Hereditary. So when you watch the trailer, go back and watch the trailers, it makes it seem like it's another like creepy little girl movie, like little girl gets possessed and haunts a family, and I think that's what audiences were kind of expecting, and I think that's why it has such a low audience score is people go in expecting this demon movie about little girl with jump scares and she stabs a guy in the throat with a knife or she
And not a 70% deep, dark family horror movie.
Exactly.
Family tragedy.
Yeah.
That turns into a horror movie in the last 30 minutes.
Yeah, and I love, those are my favorite kind of horror movies, the movies that make you actually care about the characters.
Exactly. Like I think that's I think you're right. Like I think it also kind of depends on like, you know, what kind of you know, A24 is not trying to put up like Infinity War style numbers at the box office. So and trailers are designed like that's why they've put spoilers in the trailers. With to film nerds' annoyance, because that is scientifically proven to make more people go see the movie, whether you like it or not. And so for big movies, that's something that's how they cut a trailer. But like A24 is not. I mean, they want movies to be successful, obviously, but they are. I mean, there is an audience. They know how to intrigue their audience, and I think that's why a lot of their trailers are cut the way they are is because they don't expect them to be a mass market hit, and they don't need them to be because they're, you know, like what was the budget for Hereditary? Let's find out. That was not easy to find.
Well, while you're
$10 million.
Yeah, so not even a fraction of what a big budget movie takes to make, and it's. Yeah. Sidebar. Have you seen Under the Skin? I forget. Have we talked about Under the Skin before?
I don't think I have.
Okay, that should be next on your movie list. Scarlett Johansson. It's a very good movie. A20. I believe I'm pretty sure it's A24. And it's the same kind of thing where it's horror, but it's.
I think I've heard about this.
Yeah, it's horror and drama and you're not and it's very visual and there's unique musical elements and you're not sure what's happening until the very end and there's ambiguity and kind of like when I recommended The Witch. Like The Witch is the same thing. There's ambiguity, there's kind of unsettling scenes, but to call it a horror movie seems oversimplification, where it's not just a horror movie, it's this drama of certain things happening. So I would highly recommend anyone who listens to this or you to see Under the Skin.
Yeah, and like you had mentioned, we've mentioned it a couple times, but The Witch, I actually just watched it earlier this week, based on your recommendation. It definitely has a lot of the same DNA.
Yeah.
That Hereditary does, and it does. I think it does a great job of getting you invested in the characters, and I liked how a lot of their plight isn't. It's not just a family being, haunted. It's a colonial family dealing with a bad harvest.
Yeah.
And how grounded, I think, like, it works for Hereditary too. Like, despite all the supernatural elements and cuts and things like that, like how grounded the tragedy of losing a grandmother and then your daughter is very visceral and very real, and to have that be the core horror of the movie and not the surround that with the supernatural is like what makes it work so well. Is like, because you're not scared. Like, the thing that really like made that movie hard for me, like after that movie I was like, okay, we're not gonna go see a scary movie for a while.
Yeah.
Was the fact that it was so grounded in things that were real, which is, again, I think just a mark of a good film. And I guess what was I gonna say? There's something else about we're talking about the trailers. But yeah, I think that's kind of why I think horror movie trailers are always kind of interesting some way. So I kind of get the audience score. Like, it would be, if you were expecting like a Friday the 13th kind of movie and got this, it would be maybe unfair to the movie, but understandable. I guess that makes sense.
Sure.
Like, I don't think the movie deserves that audience score, but I understand how it got it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you picture someone going to see this movie expecting. I'm trying to think like a horror movie that kind of relates to it, like one of the Amityville horror remakes, or like one of the new Insidious movies. Like
VHS.
Yeah, or VHS. Well, I actually have a soft spot in my heart for the first VHS and the second VHS. A little soft spot in my heart.
It's very tiny.
Just a teeny little one at the very, very bottom. Yeah.
Did you ever see, speaking of horror movies, did you ever see Happy Death Day?
No. And I wanted to.
I think, because that is actually like a horror movie that's like on the, I think this is also really interesting because like how horror is like within horror, it's such a diverse genre, because it's a horror movie, but it's also like it's like a horror comedy action kind of romp. Okay. Because it basically turns into like a slasher version of Groundhog Day. Okay. And it's like they have a lot of great like comedic payoffs in it, in a way that is it's a really fun movie, and I think it kind of goes to show like that horror across the board should get more respect as a genre, just because, I mean, there's so much depth within the genre itself, because you have things like Hereditary, which are incredible like family dramas, and then things like Happy Death Day, which are a like comedy, like a really like, it's a really funny movie. Like, there's some really funny jokes in it, but it's still a horror movie. Like, there's still like, it's still inherently scary. So it's really cool to see like such like dynamism in the genre, that like you're not just like stuck with something trying to do everything or nothing. It's like I can't remember. I think that was a Blumhouse project, which it
sounds about right. Yeah.
And so and they've been doing great work too, and it's cool to see that they're just willing to give a lot more. Like, it's a great time for the genre, because I think it's also just a product of the budget. Like, horror movies can be made for not a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So it's just a great kind of creative kind of breeding ground, because they let people with weird, crazy ideas that might suck if it's $100 million movie, but if it has like a $7 million budget, then they're not afraid to take risks and do interesting things with the story in a way that is, I think, really cool and just refresh. Like, for example, Happy Death Day had a $4.8 million budget.
That's incredible.
That's it.
That's incredible. Yeah.
And it's and it just super, and I think it super works. So I So yeah, that's another one I would recommend checking out if you have not already watched it.
Okay.
It's a lot more fun than Hereditary. I'll tell you that. Not that Hereditary is bad, but
And it sounds
you'll feel okay after Happy Death Day.
it sounds like a lot more fun than Under the Skin too. So, if you're feeling like a movie that makes you feel uncomfortable, check out Under the Skin. If you're feeling like a comedy horror movie, it sounds like check out Happy Death Day. So we got two drastically different recommendations there.
Cool. Well, hey, dude. That seems like a pretty good point to wrap it up here and call it a day, because that's a pretty spooky podcast.
I know. I have to my dog before it gets too dark, or else I'm gonna be too spooked. No, don't do that. No, don't do that.
Here, I'll turn up my gain super high and do it again.
No, don't do that.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for joining us, folks. We'll catch you next time. I'm Mike.
I'm David.
And don't forget that Greed got robbed.